You know, what's the hardest thing about learning? It's that most people never learn anything. They go to school for 12 years. They go to college for more after that. And they still can't recall any of it. So what is learning? Is it just memorizing stuff and then regurgitating it onto a piece of paper so you can get a grade? Or is it actually acquiring knowledge and understanding of the world around you? What if everything you know is wrong? That's what the ancient Greek philosopher Plato claimed in his famous allegory of the cave. He said that what we think of as learning is actually just an illusion. We're like prisoners in a cave mistaking shadows for reality. And the only way to break free is to have a mystical experience. Plato's ideas are radical. They go against our common sense, and they turn the whole idea of education on its head. But before you dismiss them as crazy, consider this. Our society worships learning. We believe that knowledge is power, and that those who acquire it are superior to those who don't. But what if this belief itself is an illusion? What if we're all just fooling ourselves? This idea first appeared in Plato's allegory of the cave. In this story, he describes a group of people who have lived their entire lives in a cave. They've been chained up since birth, so that they can only face one way. Their entire world consists of the shadows projected on the cave wall in front of them. They take these shadows for reality. They name them, they categorize them, they make stories about them. They even teach their children that these shadows are real. One day, one of the prisoners breaks free. At first, he's scared and confused. The outside world seems harsh and unforgiving compared to the safety of the cave. But as his eyes adjust to the light, he begins to see things as they really are. He looks back into the cave and realizes that the shadows he and the other prisoners had mistaken for reality were nothing but illusions. He runs back to the cave to share his discovery with the others. But they don't believe him. They think he's crazy. They go back to their normal lives, happy in their little cave world. According to Plato, this is the story of humanity. We're all prisoners in a cave, mistaking shadows for reality. The only way to break free is to have a mystical experience, a moment when we see beyond the shadows and realize the truth. This is why Plato valued philosophy over science. He thought that philosophy was about asking the right questions and having a direct experience of reality, while science was a futile attempt to understand reality through our senses and logic. Of course, this doesn't mean that Plato was against learning or that we should stop trying to understand the world around us. He simply argued that there are limits to what we can know and that we shouldn't be so arrogant as to think that we can know everything. There's a point where our knowledge actually stops us from seeing the truth. It's like when you're looking for a black cat in a dark room. You might not find it because your mind is too focused on the darkness. So, what's the solution? How do we break free from the cave? According to Plato, the answer lies in the way we ask questions. By asking the right questions, we can open our minds to the possibility that we don't know everything. We can become more humble and open-minded, and in the process, we might just see the truth. This is how we learn, at least according to Plato. He says that what we typically think of as learning, like reading a book or watching a video or listening to a lecture, is actually not learning at all. It's only pretending to learn. True learning, he says, is a kind of remembering. And this is why he is considered the opposite of a philosopher to be someone who simply forgets what they were taught. So let me explain. Plato, as you probably know, was a student of Socrates and a teacher of Aristotle. He's best known for his theory of forms, which is basically the idea that there's a perfect version of anything that exists in the world, like an ideal form of beauty or justice or truth. And our job as philosophers is to try to understand those perfect forms. But what does that have to do with learning? Well, Plato thought that the way we learn is by remembering things that we already know, by recalling them from our memory. This might sound crazy, but let me give you an example. Imagine you're trying to learn the Pythagorean theorem. You're given a formula and you memorize it. But understanding it, really understanding it, comes from recognizing when and where you can use it. That's not something you can learn by simply memorizing. It requires a kind of insight or intuition that you already know it. And Plato thought that all learning is like this. We don't acquire new knowledge so much as we remember it already exists within us. And this is why he says that the opposite of a philosopher isn't someone who doesn't know anything, but someone who forgets what they were taught. Because if we can't retain what we've learned, if we can't remember it, then it means we never really knew it in the first place. Now, of course, this raises all sorts of questions. How do we get this knowledge in the first place? Why do we forget it? And what does it mean to truly understand something? Plato didn't really say much about this, but I think it is safe to say that he would have preferred to be remembered as someone who understood something rather than someone who simply memorized it. So the next time you're faced with a choice between memorizing something and trying to really understand it, remember Plato and choose understanding. Because that's what separates us from the other animals, our ability to remember and to recall the things we've learned. That's what makes us human. And, of course, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think that understanding is more important than memorizing? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and leave a like, because it really helps me out. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.